already? Just give me.
Utrecht, Arnhem, Rotterdam, Den Haag,
Erasmusbrug.
and we have seen the, what is it called, the Futureland,
Yeah.
and we have seen, what else? The waterway in Arnhem we have seen, and Futureland.
Arnhem, wat is het called? Stadsblokken.
Hoi, ik ben Marcel.
Ik ben Jan.
Hey, jij hebt het georganiseerd?
Nee, ik ben
Oh.
fellow student.
Fellow student. Okay, sorry.
But,
So, I'm
I was-
Marcel.
yeah.
Nice to meet all of you. And I'm just going to give you a brief summary of everything we're doing here at the Ceuvel and organized here. And beautiful day for it. Fortunately, the cafe is supposed to be open, so end of the tour maybe we're lucky to get a drink here. So you're looking at a really nice little Eden that we created ourselves. This place was a ship wharf for many years. So you see some old parts of it, like you see here the rails, so they used to put like cars onto the boats to bring the boats out of the water. Actually the dock here, there was like a pioneering bit of industry going on. They created like this big steel tub that they could pump full of air, and then the boats would come up and they could work on the water line. So this is like the Ceuvel Volharding. So this is a former ship wharf which I think was here like something like 50, 60 years. And at a certain moment it fused with a ship wharf that had to move out of town, and then they pioneered a bit more. So this place, this area, was really an industrial area. So you'll see this part of Amsterdam on this side, but on the other side of this former bit of land is old mud and clay and slip that was dug out of the canals. So you know that Amsterdam, the city by the canals, it's famous. All these canals for hundreds of years, they had to dig them out all the time, and all that stuff got just dumped here. So this was dumped here for a couple hundred years. At a certain moment, people were like, around 1900, people were like, hey, there's so much land, why can't we do something with it? So they started doing something with this land, which came out of the era that they were experiencing then. So this was the interbellum. There was a lot of difficulty with housing in Amsterdam. There was a lot of Belgians that fled from the First World War. They were all in Amsterdam. So they started building these kind of villages, which are called the garden villages, which are kind of also a British concept, the garden village, to bring these kind of healthy qualities to the worker. So these areas were really organized to house the working class, which was really practical, because also along these shores they were building all the big industry. So we have here originally Fokker, the Dutch airplane company, started here. We have the Shell, the Royal Shell, everybody will know about this company. So this is actually the breeding ground of a lot of big international, well, Fokker is not existing anymore, but different story. So all of this happening, at a certain moment, industry started to fade out a bit in the city. Of course, you get environmental, sort of perspectives. So at sort of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people started seeing this place as the potential that it still had in transforming these areas into, well, dwelling areas, because there is a crisis that's been going on forever, which is basically there's not enough houses for people to come and live in. So especially you have a problem for the middle class. So now Amsterdam is going, after Paris, after London, housing is not affordable anymore. So this is also an area where we could find a solution for this and create much more sort of mid-level entry. But even if you organize that, it's full, and you have 200 applicants that don't have a house. So all of the time, we don't have enough houses in Amsterdam, in Holland at the moment. Well, there's a lot of other crises going on in the world right now. We're not going to talk about that, but of course this also has influence on our project. So our project was a contest because the municipality saw this abandoned, polluted field, and they just wanted to have some kind of activity on it, not let it just rot away for another 20 years before they would expect some kind of development to start happening. So they offered it to make a creative beehive, a breeding ground. They offered a contest, and there was another group of people that did a proposal, and we did a proposal. You should see, like, I'm an architect. I've just finished university. We're thinking, doing contests, prijsvragen. Internationally, you have Europan. You just have like these contexts where you can just go and let your fantasy go wild, and then sometimes you win the contest, you can build the building. But this is only a couple of people who actually get
And this is
around
how
to it.
long ago, this
20.
contest? that you
This was
won?
exactly about 12, 11 years ago, because they offered us the land. We won the contest because we have an interesting concept which you can read up about as well on our website, because I'll not be able to tell everything in this hour, but it was sort of a layered cake of these different people, different talents coming together. So we have Wouter Valkenier, he came up with the concept for the cafe, which is completely built out of reused materials. Given that 100%, he'll get there. The screws are maybe. We have the Beehive, which is 14 of these former living boats. In Amsterdam, you have this specific thing going on. It's living on the water. There might be some parts of the world where they also do it, like in Cambodia, they do it differently. Here we always have these old boats. People will stay and live on them, build a little shack, or maybe have a concrete boat and they already have a house. And what happened sort of in the last 20, 30 years is the spots where these people live, they used to be worth nothing. They would just rock up and say, hey, this piece of filth, can I live here? Oh, you have a permit, no worries. You got a boat for nothing. And now, just the spot to put a boat would run in certain areas to 3, 4, 5, maybe €500,000. Not even the boat. So with that new value, suddenly people were able to finance a really nice new boat and live on it for half of the cost. So why still live on this old crappy thing? So these things were all sort of leftovers in this big negotiating, building a new boat, trying to get rid of the old one. So when we were there, hey, we want 40 boats. Everyone said, hey, here you got my boat, no problem, you take it. So that's a free boat. So this was part of our concept, like we didn't have enough money basically to do something really like a more permanent investment, because we had a temporary lease. So temporary lease is another chapter. We had 10 years in the contest, but these are also people coming from other parts. They're saying, oh, let's do it 10 years. But legally, 10 years was very difficult. So all of these kind of beehives were all organized for 5 years. And what you would see often is that these 5 years would be just too abstract in your mind. Like, how can you invest so much only for 5 years? And then quite often, these places would be, oh, we'll give you another 5 years. Oh, you got a permit to stay forever because you got such a nice project. So here it was always a different story, because we have this very polluted bit of ground. The pollution is intense because obviously for 50 years people are cleaning off the ships and just cutting away all the stuff which is forbidden now, which used to be in the paint. So we have this very polluted place. So part of our layered cake was the purifying park. So we have the cafe, we have the beehives, then we also have the park in the middle. So we are unique in the sense of a beehive typically would be an abandoned building, would be reused inside the building. So you would have to come into the building, be invited once a year, they show off their stuff, and typically there'll be artists making paintings or whatever, be really creative. So here we are just much more of a new version of that. So this inversion also creates a lot of added quality, but also the park. Now, of course, after 8 years growing, you see the plants we planted, the trees. It's all really like feeling like a nice, comfy, garden-esque home where we can work. So there's nobody actually living here. It's just ateliers to do your work. So we also have the hotel function that was added a couple of years onwards. So we have some commercial functions. So the hotel is paying our community a little something to be here. The cafe is paying basically for the land lease. And we also have Metabolic Lab, I'll show you later. They are also commercial guests, so they pay for their land and they pretty much invested in the building themselves. So you'll see the cafe and the lab is really something we could not finance. So our renovation was much more, lo-fi, trying to look at the essentials. So I'll talk a little bit about the systematics when we do a little walk around. So obviously now with the weather and you see the people on the water, it's kind of a no-brainer. Not the closest place down in here, but this is our contract ending. And this is how you're standing in all this quality. And you feel almost like it's like an urban concept happening. Yeah? It's like life, because there you see all the big investments, people living in a house. Yeah? It's supposed to be 300,000. Now, a couple years later, boom, it's 500,000 just to build the house. And what it's worth is even much more. So you see that suddenly that's going
boosting.
Crazy. So somehow this place is becoming much more important within 10 years, because this is a place where that's not happening. So this is suddenly the formula that we have to be looking at. What is going on in this place, and should we kill it in 10 years? Or should we maybe, look at that, there's a bit of the the side there you can see it's falling over in the water. I had to cut it off from the crowd because we had massive beach guests lying there picnicking and doing everything, and it's like, oh, there's a bit of a doom scenario if they would all break off together with the old concrete. But this is, it's gone, it's waste, it's industrial remains that are not fit for this kind of use. So even what we are doing is showing that we should have done this on a double investment or maybe a triple investment, because the value that's created back for the city is so much bigger. And now we'll get an interesting last year because we have to think about, but the legislators will tell us, I put my name on the contract 1st January 2024. This place has got to be empty. So, okay, let's talk to this council. Now we just had elections, so we got a big shuffle in our councillors, which I told everybody, don't waste too much time. Last year people were talking to all these councillors and they're not there anymore. No. So this is a political story. So I'm saying bring our story to local politics, urban politics. This is the story that has to be told or shared with these policymakers. So we have to tell them, geez, we have a problem getting this demolished. Financially, we've lost a couple of years of Corona. We need some extension just to come back into the grid, to making it affordable. Prices shut up. How am I supposed to demolish this place if it's costing me 200,000 euros? I don't have it. So this is a good story. Like suddenly, oh, we're so sorry, we don't have money to really take it away. And that's a good solution. Politic figure, you just have to decide, don't take it away. And that's an instant cure for your financial problem. Give us 2 years extra, and boom, we get the money back, and we can do it the way, get those 5 years extra. We could start replacing some of the systems that weren't successful and start bringing in alternatives for that. So within investing into this whole place with the park was about 500,000 euros. So it sounds like a lot of money, but really for the amount of dwellings, it's not so much. So we had about 5,000 euros per boat to renovate them, so bring it at least to double glass windows and insulate all the walls. This we pretty much didn't hire any workers for. This is people inside the boats that had to come do the work. So you want to have a warm boat, you gotta come and insulate it, because here's the material. So with the budget we could pretty much get the material, but we were asking a lot of our partners, future partners. So this of course was great, because it's also intensified our bond. When we opened this place, we were like a family, because we had to walk through shit together and get everything done, work late, bother all of our friends to come help us out for months. In the end, we had to take it out a half year extra to finish all the boats. So that also gave a bit of a dip in our finance. I'm not worried too much about the finance. We have 15 boats rented out, 14 in the Metabolic is part of the commercial plan. So hey, if we need, let's say we need 100,000 euros to put the gaps in. That's what's that? That's me. I'm like 7,000-8,000. I can do crowdfunding. I can ask my partners. I know some of my boat partners don't have any money in the bank, but there's so many alternatives ways to also look at it. But now it's gonna be, don't put it on me, it's the politics the problem, because they approved our plan 10 years ago that we would demolish this place for about 50,000 euros. That was in the proposal. So now it's 4 times that. So it's funny that this thing, which is kind of, okay, it's a problem, we can start paying a bit more the last few years. We don't want to scare people off. Like they start running, I don't want to be in there. Let's say we get the check at the end for 10,000 each. If that's the only solution, that's the only solution. That's a real challenge for like a community, like you want to stick around for that.
It seems to me that political support should be, you're in the best situation with a party that is called Green Left, to have support for this.
The Green Left. Yeah, sounds good.
Or is that am I wrong?
Well, then you have to look much more at the system of beehives. So there is like a whole system in place. There's an office for beehives. There's a standard funding. There's a certification. You have to register yourself. You have to be looked at your professional production if you're actually creative enough. These are all like very sort of technocrat things. And I'm thinking much more, we got 200,000 grand from that system. On hindsight, we don't need that system, because it kind of limits us to our possibilities, which it wasn't really necessary, because we welcomed, we call them ecopreneurs, which are much more people on the front of creating new businesses, looking at a more sustainable world economy. So we had Mark from the Dutch Wheat Burger that makes the seaweed burger. And we told the technocrats, like, hey, this is a creative guy. Look at this guy, he's creative. He's creating new food sources for the world. This is very important. It's maybe more important than me designing a nice new staircase for somebody. I think so. So we just talked and we got him certified. And we were like, yeah, that means the system changed. And then later we heard, no, we just made an exception for your project. I said, no, it's a system change. We gotta bring it around to all of the beehives, because of course that opens a new door to other connections in the creative. And I think that's also why you guys are here. I don't know if it's particularly from urbanity or architecture. What are your backgrounds?
Both urban and architecture.
Urban and architect, that's exactly the... So yeah, like I said at the beginning, an interesting experimental spot and an interesting last phase coming up.
And what we are also very specifically interested in the Ceuvel is to know the concept of circular economy, and also as you were explaining that what challenges we have faced and we have gone through political, administrative, financial to bring this. So that's...
We'll just have to make it 2 hours. Let's go, Borg, but it's too quick.
So before we go, I just have
Yeah,
Oh,
you
sorry.
can
something. Yes.
keep
You had a
talking
quick
and
question?
walking.
Yeah, I just want to ask something about here. So, I am Ahmed Khairuddin. I have PhD in architecture
Yeah.
from Iraq, and I just want to know how much is the whole area, like water and landed area, like of your project, the one you're controlling now, like. And the
Yeah, I
river.
can tell you a little bit about this when we walk the little round.
About inside,
It's perfect.
and
Because there's a really good spot at the corner there. You can see pretty much everything. The exact square meters. That's a long time ago. Somebody asked me that.
right.
So I think it's something.
Thank you.
Ah, that's good. Wonderful smells.
Yes.
Yeah, so now we're in the garden. We can also feel a bit the planks crackling under our feet. Because we didn't want to use hardwood from the rainforest and have, you know. But oh, there's a
I
question.
have a question. Please, what is the meaning of the bee?
It's a name. It's a family name. It's really not a. But there is a word in Dutch which is not with the C but with the K, and that means chit chat.
Babbling. Babbling, yeah.
Babbling, chit chat, babble. So it's a funny name, no more than that, because it was the family name from the founder of the shipboard.
To me it seems, being Dutch, it seems a bit Belgian. Could that be? You say it's a family name. It's a family name from here? or-
I don't know.
Ah,
I don't know.
not important. Fine.
There would be a G in it, I think. That's something.
Yeah.
So back to the technique. We're standing here. Oh yeah, we're talking about the planks. So of course you go for this is like a European pine wood, and okay, then we have garden committee. They don't want us to paint it because it's all going to fall and put more pollutants into the. So now after 8-9 years, we need to start changing the planks. So what's worse in the end? You have to replace the whole thing, or you buy the hardwood.
Yeah.
So these are like the beta testing things that we're doing here, because a lot of these concepts just came together as, okay, we can't get hardwood, let's do this. Okay, put some line oil on it. Oh, you have frituur oil. So we put some oil coming out of the kitchen, but it made
Protect it.
yeah, it made it really more slippery in the so it wasn't like really good. So we did some experiments, and now I'm just changing the wood, which means I can pay some carpenters about the net, and they would make some money, and there's a little bit of microeconomy going on. So it's maybe not a bad thing that you need to replace. So we have the solar panels as well. We have 140 panels on the boats. They are pretty much good for what we do in our village of creative activities. So we're not living here. We are maybe sometimes sleeping here after the party, but it's basically setting up office, making the business office. And the cafe itself uses about as much kilowatt hours because they got like big beer coolers. You want cool beer. So if you want that circular story, you should drink warm beer. So you want to be proactive, you want to be an activist, you want to save the world,
Drink
don't
warm beer.
cool your beer. Yeah? Don't want to put ice blocks in your beer. So just accept it's like it's warm. It's almost like tea and it's brewing in the sun. You know? So I'm always making a joke out of this because, of course, people are activists, want to change everything, but they will still want to change everything with a cold beer on the table. So this is a little bit what we're also seeing here is like some of our choices were really effective and interesting and low budget, and that's probably upstairs we have the not aquaplaning. I just lost the word. I'll get back to me in a second. This is on video. This is bad. Oh, I lost the word. I'm so busy.
The reason why it's recording.
The aquaponics. Yeah, sorry. So we have the fish and the plants, and this is happening all over the world. So yeah.
No, the reason why it's recording because we have some of us who are not able to make it.
Ah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So these are like glass houses, like for the gardens. These are like for farming.
This is a
something?
former boat. This,
Former boat,
This
but
was-
you
this was-
converted into what now?
well, this is my workplace, and I have a studio meeting office at the front, and I have like, but I make furniture and I make architectural design. Some more.
Great. So
Hands-on.
this boat you got it. It was here, or you like people gave it to you?
No,
Already
we
explained?
had a very interesting starting phase when we won the contest. Of
Right.
course, we had to start producing it, so we had to find these
These
15
boats, which are unused,
took a
like they are like
My boat specifically came out of Heerenveen, which is quite far away.
okay.
Yeah, but yeah, because I wanted a boat that was a bit lower down because a lot of boats are high up, and that's not functional for a workplace. If
Right.
you want to carry in heavy furniture and these things. So we started off really building the cove for my workplace. I was also became the architect with the most practical knowledge and actually built the place. So I sat here not with a helmet, but I had a little building shed, and we started. We had the first weekend with real activities. We had a 35,000 euro weekend of I think 600-ton craning operation that came in and that took all the boats out of the water and put them on their positions. This was pretty heavy sort of logistics going on. We had 3 different spots where they had to do their hoisting, and it took them a day to go from one spot to the other spot. So we had
So the idea is when you won the competition, the motivation was to be sustainable and just use recycled materials. This
well,
was the
is
idea.
not necessarily the
Primary goal.
primary goal. I think it's more of to create something new, alternative to what
For this
the
area.
way
Like giving
the
it more
city is
a
being-
different function.
being filled. Of course, there's a background at the municipality if they offer a contest like this. There are certain gentrification sort of elements to this. They're creating this new place to live, so there has to be some destination where you can also
So then you decided, okay, these are the functions I'm giving, the beehive and the cafe, and then you added more in the like along the way. Now you have the offices and you have the art fair and you have this kind of meeting areas,
no,
right?
everything was created in that first year.
In that first year,
Yeah.
the functions were fixed.
Yep.
So you wanted a mixed use land, like
Yeah.
a mixed land use, something like that,
Yes.
to bring people over, to
Well, a beehive is not necessarily organized as a primary reason to bring people in.
I mean
Its
the other
primary
functions,
is to
yeah.
give affordable workplaces to artists. This
To
is where
artists.
the funding is based on. That's
The
the
goal
beehive
is
concept.
the artist.
So you have to read up on the Bureau Broedplaats. Maybe there's like an English translation available.
Okay.
This is like the system that's on the background. I don't think we have time to talk about that too much because it's a story on itself. There's multiple beehives in the city. Like I said before, we are just a kind of inverted project with the park, with
So-
the boats in it.
So this is like a meeting area for the artist. People like artists can come in, they can work on their art, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
can stay, and there is
Yeah.
like infrastructure for them, like hosting
Yes,
artists. This
there's
is the
also
goal.
musicians
Gotcha.
playing with their music. There's also people making paintings or making graphical designs.
Yes.
I'm cutting wood to make furniture.
Perfect.
It's just creative.
So when you are building this land in the beginning, you were the architect. You had also artists with you because I see a lot of art touch in every corner of this land. Like I see some kind of seating areas from the boats, very nicely designed. I see some kind of corners. Like every zone has some artistic touch. So my question is like, did you guys like wanted it this way to be like more kind of artistic and artists actually did that? Or you just went with it? Like how did that happen?
Well, yeah, that's not well. That the jetty just flows the way it flows. It was put on paper, of course, and the boats, and some of them have foundation. And of course, we have water and electric coming in. This is all in the jetty. So this is the logistical part, and everything you're talking about, like extras. You could have like events over summer, and they would have all this creative energy. They want to build something. They bring like a car full of old wood.
I see.
And they just start. And sometimes it's a danger. I have to take it down, and sometimes it lasts a few years.
Nice.
Sometimes I make it. Sometimes other people. So this is the Creative Beehive. This is where we all. You can see the guys always sitting on my porch and making good plans. Because it's a nice spot. You're not in the cafe. You're still sort of semi-independent. You know, you can talk about things. So all these little spots we created are of course very valuable. We've had these discussions amongst ourselves after 5-6 years. Like we got to create more spots outside where we can have this little talk. Like I'm always doing my little technique talk in the tour. Like you see this over there. But this people are sitting here and they're claiming a spot and they bring the backpack and they got some water, maybe got a sandwich. So you can see the park quality of this place is very phenomenal because people are really attracted to this. They want to come here to have their lunch or do something. That's a bit difficult because we want them to go into the cafe and pay for their lunch, of course.
I see. And how many people are running this whole place? Like
so we have these 14 boats, and I think I have about 50 to 60 people in the community.
Wow.
But that's because this boat is now the former Wheatburger boat. So this is Kim and Randy are starting their enterprise here.
Wow.
Very ambitious with officially 18 months ago. So we have different people, different lease. Some of them will have 4 or 5, maybe even 6 sub-lander, because if they are just more using the place as a connectivity hub, quite often they'll be on their laptops. I'm like the guy who does physical things.
Nice.
So I'm actually at my laptop more often in my home because then I can concentrate. Because if I'm here, there's always like people needing something, or there's somebody needing some plumbing. Kom maar dus. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Let's keep walking.
Yeah. They're still making the. Oh, they just made it a video.
That is the important. They all find that.
If they do have, I want to participate. I want to try.
Certainly look.
And I just,
So he's asking that there is not residential.
no, it's not residential. But I'm working on a project, and the lady come back from 5 weeks holidays, and she wants to come into her house. I'm still working on her house. Big question. Anyway, so, and then there was no place for her to stay. So I said, okay, just stay a few nights in my studio.
Yeah.
And then I was giving a tour, and then everybody thought I was living there. In the little cranky studio with the kids, like, there's not a shower. I watch like old school. So yeah, it was funny. I have got a proper house, proper family, just 10-minute bike ride, and I commute to this working area, and it has a lot of characteristics that feel more squatty. We have a lot of people coming from international contexts. Like, oh, we probably just rocked up and took this land to do what we did, but we had funding, we had approval. So that makes the year to come interesting politically and also financially. How are we going to get through that last year?
So
Anyway,
maybe
back to
if
the.
I can just ask one simple question, I don't know if I got it. So you say we like, did you come together as maybe a team or like? Then how did you maybe meet or something?
It was a network of creatives. People was actually. I was living in the village across. It was actually my neighbor who won the project with another architect I knew from another project. And then you would tell me, what do you want? Oh, we need somebody in the boat. And at the beginning, it's hard to imagine, we couldn't find enough partners. We needed 14 partners to pick up the main lease on the boat. We couldn't find it. So I really had to like lobby with some friends. This is a no-brainer, you gotta come and join us in this project.
So this one used to be a boat, and you converted into an office.
Yeah, this is office, and this is the technique I want to talk about in the sense of we have in the jetty we have the water, which is of course insulated because we have winters. in the winter, if it's a rough winter, we didn't really have, like, over the last 10 years, winter's been kind of mild in Holland. We had the last couple of years, we had some spikes, and we need to warm our water pipes if it freezes. So this is, it's not very sustainable, because normally you would put it in the ground, but we're not allowed to put it in the ground because the ground is so polluted. So this is like straight up effect that is killing our kilowatt hours with, would have been much more to put it in the ground.
Water?
Yeah, it's drinking water. And there's also electricity in the jetty that's bringing it to the different boats. So we don't have a sewage on this side of, in the cafe we did realize a sewage. There was still some old pipes lying there we could use. And of course the cafe would be difficult with dry toilet, so we have the dry toilet system. You see the little plastic chimney there popping up out of the boat. It's really like a lot of people are so used to flushing, but it's difficult to get them enthusiastic for it. And quite often in tours people also react this way. But if you've done your deed and it's ventilated the proper way, you don't smell anything. You put the right bacteria in there, you put the grass in there, and we got an American system with tumbling composters already in here. Then if that's full, we bring it to the central composter. That goes from one compost to the other, and after 3 years it's free of pollutants, and we can just use it in the garden if we have nutrient poor areas. The garden committee will use it as fertilizer.
So sometimes you sell those composters?
No, we don't sell our human fertilizer because we not talk about it too much. Because it's like still with a lot of people, it's like you know, the subject makes them itchy, and it isn't. But for me, it works. But we have some boats, maybe 4 or 5 people. If you're not doing the number 1 and the number 2 combined, so basically if you just use it for pissing, then it doesn't work really, the system. You know, the system should be, you know, like the full circle. Yeah. So I have a couple of boats that stopped using the system, and that's mainly because of intensive use. And yeah, the sort of challenge to take the shit out, put it in a bucket, and bring it to a central composter. So you're kind of like farming your own stuff, and that's a bit, well, it's another experiment. Like we do a lot of experiments at the Ceuvel, but I'm always saying like this should be inspiration for some tech student in Delft to come up with that dry composting toilet that's actually hygienic and systemized in that way that you're able to do that way. Because we have a huge carbon reduction on the fact that we didn't flush all of our shit for those years. So but if you're looking at those goals, there's a big goal in the sense, we didn't, we saved a lot of carbon that way. This is the other part of that dry system is we made our own Helified filters. So these are just simple IBC containers, and we put different size gravel going to pour some organic material. And you see the reeds, that's an elephant grass, and this is particularly got the characteristic to host these bacteria in their root system naturally. So even sometimes they would flood if there's too much coffee or whatever, and it starts coming up to water and it really stinks, like proper egg stink, which is exactly the stink that you smell if you pass a cleaning plant, you know, where they do it in massive scale. So this is 100% success rate for the scale that we're using it in. Of course, for a family, if my family would be using the system, I would have to fill my entire garden with the system, but still it would work because I'd be emptying my bathtub or the shower. So these are some of the systems.
So this one purifies the shower water? This is what
no, we don't have showers because we don't have domestic use. We just have a single wash pantry, which is like an office function. But we do have water coming out, and that is sanitized by the system, and the sewage system authorities in Amsterdam were interested, so they run a few tests, and after the water comes out, it's like really super clean, and we can just let it go.
So it's like irrigating this area?
Well, I don't know about irrigating the area, but we can let it flow.
It's coming out, okay.
Let's go have a look at the water.
So can we also see how you converted the boats into a like space to live in? So like
no, we're not living in them.
Like I mean the offices. How did you convert a boat into an office?
Well, it's basically just pulling everything out.
Yeah.
And creating as big a space as possible inside.
So you don't do some kind of drawings, planning, how I'm gonna convert this boat into an office? Or you just go with it and start
well,
patching?
The thing is, you were talking about something we did 10 years ago.
Oh, you
so
did?
for me now to talk in the tour about the sketches and the plans and those things.
I mean, like
really
the
focus
idea,
in the
because
tour.
you wanna understand the idea of this
Of course,
place.
I understand, but this is very specific.
Very
what
specific.
boat we got,
Okay.
and most of them we try to take as much out
Okay.
as possible. But sometimes even from managing a build like this on 14, 15 boats,
Right.
people would well, it happened. People took the wall out,
Right.
and then it started raining. Then the fucking roof collapsed
Oh.
because the wall apparently was load bearing.
So the roof is the same boat, but it's backward. Like you flip the boat down. How does it work? Like.
No, in that case, if the roof collapsed, then we build a new roof. This boat here, number 3 boat, it actually lost its roof in the storm.
Okay.
Twice, because it's in such an orientation on the water that we had like real big storms. It kind of like creeped up under and because the wood is quite old and it's not like completely fresh, the glue and the screws, it sort of like popped out. And once it comes under the asphalt, it picks it up and it just goes into the air like a little seed. So anyway, we had to replace that. That's not a good. That didn't meet our carbon ambitions because we had to buy new bitumen right again. Anyway, standing at this spot, we see very nicely the context of course, our little spot in comparison to what we saw here 10 years ago was just wasteland, and now we've already come quite a long way. You see, of course, the authentic monumental garden village from 1918. This is still there. People are now selling a little house. It's 50 square meters. It's now on the market for 400,000 euros. So that's kind of the price that, if you want to live in Amsterdam, it's called the start budget. If you don't have that, that means you eliminate a lot of people from living in Amsterdam because it's only people who actually have daddy or mommy that can spare a couple of hundred to get you into that house. Well, opposite they built the new block, and I actually toured to the people that own the big red tower. At the beginning I was like really expecting this quite poshy club of real estate investors, and they would turn out really lovely people and very involved in what's going on. Turns out it's a company that was organized on an inheritance of some guy who owned a lot of steak bars. They just said, I want to do something good with money. So they actually have a portfolio of this kind of buildings, and they rent it out, and all the profit goes to orphanages in Africa. All the profit goes to like a good destination. So this also shows you a little bit, like it looks like this red dragon of real estate money, but it does actually serve a good, there's a good outcome.
Are they like the social houses?
They're not social, they're maximum commercial.
Okay. And they also float? Because I see they are on top of that.
No, that's land, that's all, right? No, they don't.
Oh, no.
They don't float.
Yeah, but it's like I told you that all of this area is basically the slip coming out of the canals. It's not like suddenly it's like a mountain or anything. All of Holland is basically compared to the new Amsterdam Pijl. This is the water pijl, and this is about a meter above it.
Okay.
So you'll see what happens typically if they find a polluted place. They would put these steel barriers around it, which is called the Damwand, and then they would throw a lot of yellow sand on top and just forget about it. So what we try to do, and also Stephen Delve, who was the architect who came up with the purifying park concept, he's still involved in the area, and he's actually made some plans to bring more natural chances to the water. What happens now, it's formerly a sea harbor, so it's quite deep, so you get a lot of big ships in here. But that doesn't function really well for the nature. And it is polluted as well. We know that the slip bed itself contains a lot of these pollutants also from a ship wharf, but just down the canal we had a trash burning plant for about 80 years. So I'm personally not swimming here, but if it's weather like this, a lot of people come here, they go, come swim, it's nice. And I'm like, okay, I'll enjoy yourself. And yeah, I try not to talk about it specifically. Like, there's a lot of people now coming into the area living here. Sometimes these are families here. You see a little jetty outside of the kitchen door, and they go like on a little subboard and they swim out every day. At a certain moment, these people are interested. What's up with the water quality? What are we actually letting our kids swim in? So if you just take a check from
Those are bad.
the water now, there is a bit of circulation going on here, so that's not too bad.
But those are people swimming, right?
Those
yeah,
are bad.
yeah. So
What?
No, those are people
yeah,
swimming.
yeah, but it's not forbidden.
Don't die immediately.
Oh, okay.
No, but
It's not the best quality.
it's, but it's kind of like it's good quality, and they're swimming in this. It's not like they're dying instantly.
Okay.
But what happened here in the beginning, people were walking out of like terrace into the water, and then your skin absorbs the heavy metals. It's just not smart. And then people had small kids with balls playing and I walked to them and I got small kids, I don't let them do this here. It's like a little bit crazy, but people just associate this with beach culture. So once you have horeca and you have water, then people instantly in Holland think beach. And they say, oh, I'll go swim somewhere. So in the beginning we tried to forbid people to swim. Now you see also the hotel has these little steps coming in and out of the water. So we try to realize the infrastructure that people actually don't need to walk to the slip bed. But yeah, in a sense, the people that live there started investigating how is it arranged. Can I swim here or do I actually die in 10 years? And then the municipality came up with, if it rains, you can't go in the water for 2 days because the sewage will flood and then you got the E. coli bacteria. So then it's not good to swim. Okay, nobody knew that. Okay, nice to know. 2 days after the rain, no swimming. So everybody's swimming after 1 hour of the storm is passed, if it's hot. So anyway, that's just a little sub thing that's going on that just intrigues me also as an urbanist in a way, like, hey, what does the city do about this? Because they actually have a website to say there's 2 spots in Amsterdam that are really good and clean to swim. And they don't basically tell you to think twice about swimming somewhere else. And you see a lot of hinder or like people are living close to a popular swimming location that's not even clean swimming location. It's so busy with people. If it's hot in summer, there's so many people living in the city, they're all going to be jumping in the water. Anyway, these houses were originally offered somewhere between 500 and 600,000. And right now, the last one, Costco came on the market for 1 million. But it's a bit bigger house, so it's almost
1 million what?
euros. Yeah, but it's still kind of a bargain because that house is only 50 square meters and this house is 150 square meters. So you get 3 times 400. You pay more for that small little house square meter price than these
So
houses.
50 meters squares for 1 million?
It's 8,000 a square meter. People here now, real estate are developing on a basis that they sell everything that they build for 8,000 a square meter. That's a lot of money. My house is worth a lot of money. And I'm still on 4 or 5 a square meter. It's theoretical. I still need to live somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
Or I
You
want to
can
buy a
just
camper,
relocate here.
start a new life, you
You
know.
can just relocate to the beehive.
I can come live here. I got a family of 4. So for me, practically, I spend a lot of time on the beehive. Probably more time than is sane for everybody to stay so much time here. So of course we're in the 9th year now. I'm 47 now. I'm basically thinking, hey, people set up another spot. For me, it's quite imaginable that this concept is very applicable to any location. We have here multiple locations between here and say the Zaan, which is the next river with a lot of industrial past. So this is actually a very interesting urbanistic area to develop. But somehow in the Dutch politics, it's much bigger to have a big ideology like based on our, international companies, which is basically creating land. Like a lot of Dutch companies created all that silly looking land in Dubai. That's all Dutch. How do you say that? Technology. Offshore. It's basically they dredge up sand and create land. So we're good at that in Holland. We make dikes like the best in the world. So we're doing it all over the world. And in that sense, that's our biggest economy. So our local government, not local, central government, is actually funding this to create new land towards Almere. Much more big scale, big project, big names, create new land and build on that. But actually it's much more expensive than to fill in all these gaps that we're doing. So this is an alternative. It's an interesting discussion. Instead of investing all that money to dredge up the sand and create new land, it's just to use what's already there and just to have more assertive plans towards the polluting side. So I was talking about Steven Delva, who now created a plan to give more chances to this nature, because we see a lot of birds, we see a lot of wildlife, but it's just sort of always still a little sketchy. And what he's going to do is create these big concrete platforms and have all of the polluted ground that's coming out of these building locations, if they're not being covered, and put them in there, cover them with some plastic, put some other ground on it, and put plants on it, and actually lower it also a little bit under the water level, so you get lots of chances for water plants, probably lots of mosquitoes too. So it's going to look nice. It's going to look like a little part of Africa.
Well, on the edge or in the middle?
Walking around and things like this.
On the edges, you mean, or in the in the middle?
And also in this area, you see kind of this focus on the spot to say, hey, here's a former factory. Bum, let's build a new block here. Oh, let's combine it with a big red tower and do some small houses. Yeah, okay, bum, build it, and then go to the next one. Bum, build it. So there is a big sort of urban plan that focuses on this big canal, which is a former sea harbor in a way. There's big ships that used to come in here. That is not useful green. So if you are looking at the square meters per person that comes to live here, per park available, they score very, very bad. They score actually worse than the UN dictates for people to be healthy. And we've seen these problems before on the Eastern Harbor Islands, where also we had former harbor islands, former industry areas that got transformed. Okay, we make a little bit of a park here to walk your dog, and in the end there's so many people walking there, it's just too cramped. They have to take their car and drive off somewhere else to find their natural balance, and that's somehow missing a little bit in this whole plan. I'm not saying like, hey, let's bomb a boulevard free and connect this to the Northern Park, but you are missing a little bit, because it feels like, although there is a master plan, people are just focusing on these particular areas and building it to the maximum. And then you're all sitting next to the water, and at a certain moment it's like, hey, where can my kids still play some football? And okay, you have other places, but you just got to go a bit further. So this is an interesting discussion if you focus in that sense on your postal code, if you focus on your district, if you focus on your city, if you focus on part of your province. And this is also the situation with the balance of housing. Of course, traditionally, the North had all this social housing. It was like almost 100% social housing. Never 100, but 80, like big. So at a certain point, they thought, oh, if we start building here, we don't need to bring in more social housing, because we already have 80%. Well, the 80% got decimized because, like me, I was a young starter, I could buy a former social house. So at a certain moment, they sold off just about half of them. It's kind of like balanced out at the half. I don't know why, because legally you need 2/3 to decide anything. But okay, they sold about half. So you still have 40% of North is then still social housing. So it kind of gives you a free letter from the to go build 100% commercial. And this was actually happening. It was happening so much that people were starting questions in politics, like, how is this working? I just gave a tour to these people. They created a social block. Yeah, a social block for people who are buying, because it was social. Like, you had the communal garden, with the communal picnic table, but it wasn't social housing. But they just sort of stole the term, and it kind of felt like, hey, did anybody try to smoothen things out here a little bit? So we're actually getting a few social blocks realized now, but they're still quite small chips in that big, because you see the high towers there next to the ferry. I don't know if you came past there. You can see high-rise, well, not just now, but behind there on the NSM. So there's this whole sort of big blue banana of new build is coming. And you basically have another one on that side of North. So it'll be very interesting to come back in 20 years and see how that's all balancing out.